On the line now is celebrity lawyer Nick Freeman. Very good morning to you.
Good morning, Liz.
So, we wake up to this news that there is an out-of-court settlement. But of course, it was only last month that lawyers for the Duke of York were saying, he wants to clear his name with a trial. We know Virginia Giuffre said she wanted her day in court. What changed, do you think?
Time moving on, the reality was fast approaching, and both teams of lawyers are obviously considering the situation from their respective clients' perspectives. And from the Duke's perspective, very shortly he was due to be given a sworn statement where he would be exposed to very serious forensic cross-examination in terms of what actually had happened, what he did, intimate parts about his life. You referred to the interview with Emily Maitlis. That was the most appalling interview I think I've ever heard, and it was really quite gentle in its nature so far as he was concerned. So I think his lawyers advised him quite strongly. This is not a place we want to go.
If that was anything to go by, the thought of being cross-examined by some of the best legal brains in America,
it would have been a disaster. An absolute disaster for him. But of course, we don't know what the evidence is. And I think what's very important here, it's a very carefully crafted statement. And you've referred to the fact that there is no admission of liability, which is absolutely significant from the Duke's perspective. And curiously, there is no apology, but there is an admission that Mrs. Giuffre was a victim. And you referred to things that have obviously helped her reach this settlement. I think the amount of money involved, and the figures have been branded around, that the figure that's been agreed is probably larger than would have been agreed had this case run its full course. And I'm setting aside legal costs here. I'm just talking about sort of the compensation aspect. So that the amount of money is huge, even by American standards, which is far, far larger in America than it is here.
Will we ever know the amount, that settlement amount? Would it ever be disclosed, I guess?
It shouldn't be. It's been referred to that it won't be, but these things do have a habit of getting out, and already, last night we were having figures branded around. I think the reality is, and I only have anecdotal evidence, but my view was right from the start, it will be between 5 and 15 million, and that would include legal fees. And it's important to bear in mind the legal fees are going to be far less, or should be far less, because of course lawyers haven't had to run a trial. They've negotiated a settlement, so far less work has actually been undertaken on their part. And I think from the American perspective, one of the lead lawyers agreed to take the case pro bono, so I anticipate there'll be no cost from him at all.
We do know that some of there will be a donation to her charity, but we don't know whether she will get some of the money personally. But in the US, there has to be a record, doesn't there, of how much non-profits receive. So at some point that information may come out.
For the charitable donations, we will know. We will know the exact amount because there will be a record of that, and there's no means of suppressing that. But in terms of any personal amount awarded towards her, we won't know. But once we know the amount towards the charity, we'll have an idea of what it's going to be towards her.
And can I ask, do most civil cases in the US settle before they go to trial? What is the difference between the court system there and here?
Well, the burden of proof is the same. It's balance of probability. But in terms of settlement, it's about 97% of cases in America settle, which is extraordinary high. I mean, it's an incredible amount, far, far higher than here. There's always an encouragement to settle if you can, but literally you're talking about every civil action that's brought settles, which is absolutely astonishing. Of course, they are a very litigious country, far more litigious than we are here. But to answer your question, it's literally every case that's brought settles, and there's no surprise here. If there ever was a case that this was going to settle, this was one that was going to. But it's also important to bear in mind, that this is a massive year for the monarchy, and you've read the headlines in the papers, and all the headlines. I'm not obviously defending the Duke of York. I don't have his instructions, but all the headlines, and it's natural that every single member of the public will assume, well, you've paid the money because you've done something. It doesn't necessarily follow, and the Duke of York will undoubtedly be under huge pressure from senior members of the royal family to get this sorted and get it sorted quickly. And it is significant if we remind ourselves that he was told, or we were told earlier on, that the Duke is a private citizen insofar as this case is concerned. He was cut off, that umbilical cord was cut earlier this year or the end of last year. He was going to deal with this on a private basis. That's how we're not really going to ever find out who's funded it, what that breakdown of funding is, because it was a private matter and he's entitled to that.
Okay. Nick Freeman, many thanks for joining us this morning and getting your thoughts. That is Nick Freeman, celebrity lawyer, talking about that out-of-court settlement between Prince Andrew and Virginia Giuffre.